Thank you for being here tonight for this very important conversation. As we begin, I'd like to introduce Marissa Bradley. Marissa is a current student here at Lawrence Tech studying biomedical engineering. Okay, I wanted to make sure I got that right. So Marissa is going to tell us a little bit about her research and the work that she's been doing with SWE in her time here at Lawrence Tech. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Marissa.
Krista, thank you. As Krista said, my name is Marissa. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a current senior in biomedical engineering here at Lawrence Tech. I'm originally from Hazlet, Michigan, which is over 5 minutes, about an hour away. I'm the president of the Society of Women Engineers here at Lawrence Tech, and I'm going to talk to you guys briefly about what I did this summer and about what we were doing this week here. Oh, sorry, that was supposed to be up. There we go. So this summer I participated in a research experiences for undergraduates, or an REU, at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in New York. And what I did is I worked under a graduate student for the summer on helping him with his research project. And so the main goal of our project was to use E. coli bacteria and sugars from plant waste to make a medicinal compound. So for example, when we produce corn or other plants for agriculture, we eat the corn, but what's left over is the stalk, the husk, these parts of the plants that we don't use. And basically they're just waste, they're just thrown away. So instead, we want to take the sugars from those plants and use them as food for these E. coli bacteria. And then these bacteria produce useful things for us. So our compound that we wanted to produce was biolacin. This compound has potential anti-cancer and antibiotic properties. It's useful in medicine, so that's why we wanted to do that. So we had this idea for this process, and it sounds great, but there's one major problem. So plant waste, or lignocellulose, has 2 different sugars in it. So you can see up on, there we go. There we go. Sorry, they're a little small. I thought the screen would be bigger. But we have 2 different sugars in plant waste. And they're a little bit different structurally. So we have glucose and we have xylose. And the problem this causes is that E. coli wants to break down the glucose first. So when you put these bacteria in a solution with the sugar, they're only going to use up half of the sugar that's there. So this isn't very efficient. You don't get as much product as you could. So the solution is to use a genetically engineered strain of E. coli. So our original strain only wants to break down glucose, but our genetically engineered strain wants to break down the xylose instead. So the goal is to add them together. So when you put them together in a mixed sugar solution, all of your sugar gets used by both strains, and you get your maximum amount of product with biolacin. So this is what we showed in our project. So these are just some photos from my experience. I would definitely encourage undergrads to get involved in research because it's a great way to explore graduate school and see if pursuing graduate education is the right choice for you. I personally loved working in the lab. I learned so much. I got to network with professors and other students from all over the country. None of them were from Michigan, actually. I was the only one. So I met people from all over the United States and got to talk to them about what they're doing with their schools and what their future plans are. And these are contacts I'm going to have throughout my career. It's also like I said before, a great way to explore graduate research because I spent a couple months working on this project. It's basically a graduate level project that I had an experience to do as an undergrad. So I was really grateful for that opportunity to see what it's like. I also got to spend the summer in New York. I've lived in Michigan my whole life, and I love Michigan. But it was exciting to live in a new place. One of the things I did a lot was hiking, as you can see from the photos. Our went on a lot of adventures out in New York. So I encourage undergrads to get involved with research projects, both through the RU programs and through research here at Lawrence Tech. Because these are great ways just to apply what you've been learning in the classroom and get more experience that's useful for the student.
So your ankle, John?
I don't know. Oh, here we go. So now that I talked a little bit about my research project, I'd like to talk a little bit about SWEET. So to start, the Society of Women Engineers, their mission is to advance women in science, technology, engineering, and math fields. And SWEET is divided into professional and collegiate sections. So collegiate sections are mostly involved with connecting students with networking, mentoring, and different career advancement opportunities, as well as providing a community for students in engineering, because engineering is still a male-dominated field. So it's nice to have a group of women who can come and talk to. So here at Lawrence Tech, we're involved in a wide variety of activities. First, we go to national and local conferences. The image on the top left is from the 2016 SWE National Conference in Philadelphia. I went as a sophomore. It was a great experience for me. They had a huge career fair, so I got to see what hunting for a job would be like once I had graduated. And I got to see that at a young age, so I'm glad I did, because it helped me prepare. We also do networking events on campus. We host speaker series. We connect our students with potential employers for internships, for jobs, and we teach them how to sell yourself to a potential employer. We also participate in volunteering and outreach. For example, we participate in Extreme Science Saturdays with Dr. Collins. So we talk with high school students about careers in engineering and about potentially pursuing degrees in science and math. We also did an event in downtown Detroit last year with the professional SWE section. So it was called Girls Exploring Engineering Day, and it was held at the Michigan Science Center. So it was basically a day where elementary school girls could spend the whole day at the museum, and they got to do all sorts of fun activities. They had like a noodle slingshot, it was a competition to see who could get a noodle slingshot to go before this. And they had free time to explore the museum and just talk with older women and students who are all involved in engineering. And last but not least, we also have different events just for fun, to de-stress before finals. We know students get stressed, burnt out at the end of the semester, and sometimes taking that mental break is just what you need before your final exam. So with that, I'd like to thank Dr. Collins and the Alumni Association for inviting me to talk today, as well as Lawrence Tech and my funding for my research. And are there any questions?
So I mean, as someone who's been from New York, I've really enjoyed all the positive attributes that you have to say about it.
It's definitely a fun place.
Yeah.
I've been to New York once before. I've been to the city. I had not been to upstate New York. I did not know how beautiful it was.
What was one of your biggest challenges with your research over the summer?
I think the biggest challenge, it was different for me because, so Lawrence Tech is mostly an undergraduate institution, so I was used to working with other undergrads and professors, but RPI, Whistler, is mostly, it's a mix of undergraduate and graduate students. They have a huge graduate school. They have a great graduate engineering program. So instead of just working for a professor, I worked for a grad student under a professor. And I think the most challenging part for me was communicating with both of them at the same time. Because my grad student would say, Marissa, I need you to do this today. And my supervisor, my professor would say, no more studying, you should do something else. So I had to get them both on the same page, and get all three of us on the same page. Because although we were doing science, communication is very important.
I think we can all relate to that. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, Martha. Yeah, so if you want to stay, Marissa's actually going to be one of our panelists this evening. So without further ado, I would like to bring up our panel. So Julia, if you want to come on up. And then if the panelists would like to take their seats, we'll give everybody just a minute to introduce themselves. So we'll have Julia ask questions for a little while. We've got kind of like a list of a couple questions, maybe prizes, and then we'll open the floor up to the audience for Q&A at the end. So Julia, take it away.
Okay, great. So thank you all for coming. I think this is such a great idea. I'm not sure exactly who is the genius behind it. Can you hear me? I guess, is this even on? I think so. I don't even know that I need it because I have quite the voice. It's just taping. Oh, okay, sorry. That's good to know. Thank you. It was such a good idea because I do think that there's a need for this. I mean, we all read the news about, you know, a lack of women in science fields. It doesn't even, I mean, even the most recent reports show that it's not really getting that much better, you know, for all the effort so far that we've put into it. So there needs to be more exploration about that. And I think that I'm the editor of Metro Parent Magazine and have been for almost 13 years now. So I think I'm very hyper aware of the feeling that parents have and educators have about the importance of this, because I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson who said, that's right, isn't it? Yeah. Who said once, I thought this was such a huge epiphany when you hear this. He said, imagine if we had a culture throughout history that supported women in science and where we'd be today. Right? Isn't that huge? I thought that was huge. I mean, really, what advancements would we have? Because when you have half the population or more than half the population that's not really engaged in that or doesn't consider themselves empowered in that way, what have we left on the table historically? Really, I think that's so profound. So without further ado, I just think these are the stakes. This is why this is so important and so could be transformational for our society. So not to make it, not to put too big of a stamp on it, but there you go. I think it's that big of a deal. So I'm going to ask each of you, these amazing women in science and already women in science, to give a little bit of information about each of them so you can understand who they are and where they come from.
Okay. All right, so I'll start. First of all, I want to thank the Lawrence Tech Alumni Association and as well as Dr. Sabrina for inviting me to be here. My name is Donna Bell, and I work at Ford Motor Company. I went to Lawrence Tech when it was Lawrence Institute of Technology and graduated with the first class of LTU. So very excited about that in 1989. So, and my degree is in electrical engineering. And went to work for a Dow Chemical Company for a few years. Ended up back in Detroit. I am from Detroit. Ended up back in Detroit working for Ford Motor Company. I've been there for 25 years in various capacities. And now I am the chief of staff for our chief technology officer. So it's a different title than what you probably have on the flyer. And I handle the all activities of the business office globally. So. Expanded role, just came back from Palo Alto, but excited to be back in Michigan.
Great.
You guys already heard from me.
Yeah.
My name is Marissa Bradley, and I'm a current student here at Lawrence Tech. I'm majoring in biomedical engineering, and I'm graduating in May of 2019. I'm part of the Society of Women Engineers, the cross-country team, Student Athlete Council, as well as other organizations here on campus. In the past 2 summers, I've had research internships.
Wonderful.
So I'm Nikki Kennedy. I went to Lawrence Tech and graduated from the electrical engineering program in 1995. I had a little different path than some of my colleagues. I ended up actually in medical school. I had started over at University of Michigan in Ann Arbor for graduate school in both electrical and biomedical engineering because it was such a new thing back in those days. And I just decided that it was time to make the jump. So I went from there over to Wayne State for medical school, graduated from there in 2003. Several years later, ended up finishing general surgery residency at St. John's over on the east side of town. Went on to do vascular surgery fellowship over at Henry Ford downtown, and I've been the section chief out there for vascular surgery at Henry Ford West Bloomfield since, well, I started there in 2012 when I graduated and took on that role probably around 2015-16. It's a different story, I know. So if you guys have questions, I'm happy to go into it, but I don't want to take up the time. I'm also currently getting my MBA over at University of Michigan through their executive MBA program. So.
Great.
My name is Terry Onika, and I graduated in 1990 from Lawrence Tech. When I came to Lawrence Tech, I was taking the computer information degree here, and when I started out my career at EDS, so doing a lot of things for General Motors, and then I went to Ford for a while, and then I went to Johnson Controls, which is a supplier to the to Ford, Chrysler, GM, Volkswagen, all the car makers. And then from there, I started to really specialize in supply chain. So I then went on to be a general manager at an EDI company. And then from there, I'm at my current position today, where I'm the director of automotive at QAD. So in my job that I have today, I do a lot of travel around the world, studying supply chains and trying to make them work better.
That's awesome. I specifically went before everything and I said to everyone, you're going to have to introduce yourselves because your bios are so impressive. I could never extrapolate like the best things to say about you, or we'd be here all day and me just reading off all of your accomplishments. So there's a lot of brain trust right here. I'm going to start, I think, with something that I think we just have to sort of get out and acknowledge, which is that a lot of people, and maybe even some people in this room, think that girls aren't as good at science. Think that boys somehow are more adept at science. There's a bias, there's a prejudice in that way. And I think it's one that sort of that gets shrugged off. And I see it in the parents that I talk to sometimes, women sometimes, who are saying, well, you know, girls aren't as good at science, you know. And I wanted to ask you all what you think about that. If you hear people say that to you, even like, oh, you're such an exception, you know, in your aptitude for science, or if you've ever experienced that, and what you think even about that sort of, you know, kind of pervasive bias that I think is out there. Anyone can jump in.
All right, sure. So I'll start. You know, when I was growing up, I was always told, hey, you know, you're good at math and you're good at science, but never really made the connection to where that would lead me. And so it took a little bit of time to get there, right? Mm-hmm. So there weren't a whole lot of people in my neighborhood or in my life that I could say, hey, look, I want to be, you know, an engineer, or I want to be a scientist or a doctor or whatever the case may be. And so I did press through because of the encouragement that I got from my family, but I do still see that there is a bias for girls in the science and math areas. I have a niece that her daughter is really good in math, and I want her to nurture that. And so I continue to, you know, reinforce these positive statements about her doing more in math, doing more academics, you know, different math programs and camps and things like that. So I do think that there still is a bias, and I think it's going to take each one of us to actually get out and communicate the message that math and science is not just for boys, it's for girls as well, and as well, help them with their confidence, because I think that's a really good thing that will help them move into the next realm.
Yeah, that makes sense. Anyone want to add anything to that? Have you experienced that, or?
That's a fabulously wide and hot topic. I think I was very fortunate in that I never really realized there was a glass ceiling. The people around me were always said, you can do anything you want. But I find that maybe instead of just saying that there's a stereotype about boys being better with math and science, I think I see it more as women or girls. There's a stereotype of what roles we traditionally play, and it tends to not emphasize math and science. I get asked all the time why I'm not married. Why do I have to be? I had somebody, yeah, I mean, it's fine, it's not my thing, okay. I had somebody just yesterday email me. I was trying to link another vascular surgeon who I'm at in my MBA class with our chief clinical operating officer. They were still a connection that we were trying to make. So I collected them an email, And the next thing I know, I'm getting an email from my friend's executive assistant saying, "Hi, Nicole. I would like to know when Dr. So-and-so's schedule is available. Here are the times that my doctor's available."
Oh.
And I said, "Hi, I'm actually a vascular surgeon just like your boss, and I don't work for this guy. You're going to have to find out who does the scheduling for him."
Good
And
for
this
you.
just happened to me yesterday. So I don't think it's that we don't encourage girls to go into math and science. I think maybe it's a little bit more fundamental than that. Why do girls have to do dance class? Why do girls have to do creative writing class?
You think it's a
These are
larger
all
gender
great
bias
things.
or gender perceptions that we have?
Yes, they are
Yeah.
all fabulous things, but why aren't boys encouraged to do creative writing? Or why aren't boys encouraged to go into dance or art or something like that?
Right.
I think that the opportunities are there for girls, but it's not that we don't think they can do it. We just don't point them in that direction as well as we should.
Sure. Any other?
Yeah, I was going to say too, I think for me, I like to always focus on my career and being the best me. So leave the clutter out of what everybody else is doing. What do I need to do to get to where I want to go? And I think for me in my career, that's really helped me a lot. Just be confident in yourself, know what you want to be, head in that direction. There's times I look at my career and think, I always like to strive to be in that top 10% in my company, and so what do I need to do differently? And so I like to focus on me, because sometimes if you get focused on other people,
Yeah.
then you're not focusing on being the best you, and that takes away from you. So that's kind of been my strategy, is just to focus on me and just leave the rest there and just keep pushing forward.
Sure. Marissa, you're good? You want to say something?
I don't have a lot of industry experience with
No,
this,
but
I know when I was in high school, and I told people as a senior in high school, I'm going to Lawrence Tech, I'm going to major in biomedical engineering, everyone was like, whoa,
Right.
oh my gosh, Melissa, you are just this like extraordinary being. And
Just
then
take it. Own that.
and then I got to Lawrence Tech, and I was like, there's a lot of really smart men and women here.
Yeah.
I'm not that unusual. And I think part of it is I grew up in, a small suburb.
Sure.
So the attitudes were different there, whereas I came to Southfield, to Detroit, and a lot more people are more open. Especially being around young college students, they're more open to the idea. I don't feel like I've been stereotyped at school, in college. But I felt like it was definitely there in high school from my teachers and from my classmates, because that wasn't something that was encouraged at my particular high school.
Yeah, that makes sense. I wanted to share something. There was a study earlier this year, and this is the only time I'll do this, but I just think this is so interesting related to this topic. From psychological science, there was a study, and a lot of times, boys tend to score number one when it comes, their top subject is math and science, and the top subject for girls is reading, right? We've seen that historically across the board. But you guys all know, any of you who are into science, and Lawrence Tech would be a great community, realize that studies are tricky, right? They're not always telling you the facts, okay? It's a fact, but it's up to interpretation. Well, the truth is, this study just found out that part of the reason is because girls are scoring just as well in math and science. It's just that they're so extraordinary in reading that's why they're number one in reading. Yeah. So you see why I wanted to share that with you. I was like, whoa, that's so interesting. And studies can be so deceptive. I mean, we're in a science university. So that to me was quite an epiphany, because I think that creates a false impression. So I wanted to share that with all of you. Okay, so you, Donna, sort of talked about how you first got involved in science and everything. Did someone kind of mentor you along the way? You said your family was very supportive, but I thought you all could talk about how you got that first science spark, that sometimes maybe girls don't get encouraged in. Anyone else? If you have more to say about that, Donna, feel free.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep,
And I love science.
Yeah.
And I think so much so that I scared my girls away from science, even though they were good in science. Anytime they had a science project, it was just kind of over the top. But I was always excited about that time of year when you had to do a science project and you had to, do the experiments. So, create your plan, do your experiments, and then prove your plan. It was just so awesome, just to see that your experiment actually did what you said it would do, what your hypothesis was. And so it was just always really fun for me in science. And then moving into high school, it moved more into computers. And just understanding computers and how they worked and things of that nature. Not really knowing that it would tie into science and math somehow, but it just really intrigued me how it worked, how things kind of were put together and things like that. So
I think that's so interesting too, because I think sometimes we forget. It's like you have to say, oh, it's science or it's STEM, and it really, I think, with kids, it starts with interest.
That's right.
With all of us,
Curiosity.
You're not necessarily labeling it. It's just I'm interested in this.
That's right.
Yeah, so true. Anyone else want to jump in on like what got you, where you first felt kind of your spark that you knew this was the career path you were going to go into?
I'm still figuring that out.
That's true.
What?
You are, but you're still saying in
I'm
the science
still working
thing.
on it.
Although your executive MBA feels like you're maybe drifting.
It's no. It's still a science.
Is it a science of people?
It's kind of the art of science. But I'm going to set this up for Marissa here.
Yeah.
So my big thing, because I started electrical engineering and I really wasn't interested in the automotive field. It's a long story. But I ended up at Lawrence Tech, and it was very automotive related. At the same time, my dad was a prosthodontist, a dental specialist who did reconstruction, building stuff, dentures, bridges, those kinds of things.
Fashion.
And he had actually gotten a patent on a device, a dental device. And because he was a big fan of cheap free labor, I got recruited as the engineering student to work for his company. So this was back in the 90s when the FDA was not as friendly to work with in terms of getting medical devices approved and everything. So we had the FDA coming and knocking on the door all the time, and we had to learn about quality and process improvement. We had to learn about packaging and sterilization. I mean, there was just so much. And at the same time, all of my friends had gone to medical school and taken that other path. So I was listening to them. So between the two, I realized that it was time for me to make that switch. And my question for Marissa is, now that you've done your internship over at RPI, your summer over there, if I could ask, what were your career aspirations and how you thought your career was going to go before, and what are your thoughts now?
That's a good question.
To be honest, I'm not really sure.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
So when I started college, I chose biomedical engineering because it seemed fit most of my interests. And so far, it has kept me very interested. But I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And I think I still don't. I think I'm still exploring. Doing the research internships made me realize how much I loved research. And like I answered Donna's question, how hard the communication aspect is sometimes. So for me, I'm not sure. I'm strongly considering graduate school, but I'm also ready to get into industry, get into research. I don't know where I was going with the rest of that.
You're undecided.
Yes, I'm undecided.
That's good.
I say for me, when I was in high school, I was really good at math, and when I graduated, I actually really wanted to be a teacher. That was really my passion, but at the time there was a decline in the need for teachers, so I thought, well, I want a job, because being in Detroit, it comes and goes, right? Layoffs, so I thought, what can I be involved in that I can have job security? So I thought, IT, because IT was really taking off. So that's why I went to school for that, and I started out being a programmer. But then I realized once you're in programming, you got to sell your IT, right? And everybody's, well, what's the business value for that? Why do you want to do that? So I quickly grasped to, really I feel like now I'm back to teaching. What will I get out of this if I apply this technology to this business problem? And how can I make my company better? So now I spend my time speaking around the world, which is really fun. I love it, about how to apply technology in your business and the value that you'll get by doing that. So I kind of went full circle, but I love it that I went back to my training, because I feel like every time I'm in front of people, I'm teaching them how to improve their business.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Terry, you had mentioned earlier that you just always tried to be your best, like forget it, like put the blinders on, like those poor ponies in Central Park, right? Like I'm just gonna keep going and do my thing. So, but even when you do that, sometimes, right, something darts in front of you and puts an obstacle in front of you, and you say, oh, wait a second, this isn't cool, or this. Did you ever, and then I want all of you to address, do you remember a time when you felt like you did experience a hurdle in your careers, in your professional aspirations, and you sort of, you don't necessarily know for sure, but you sort of got the impression that it maybe was because you were a woman, and you felt that you had that? Was it, whether it's someone being condescending to you,
Right.
or a little bit like the anecdote that Nikki shared, the assumption that you're the assistant to schedule things or something along those lines?
Right, right. I have to say, I've been very lucky not to have that in my career. And I work in a very male-dominated field because I'll go speak and I'm probably the only person speaking. But I think for me, I just want to help people. I want to share my knowledge. I just focus on my expertise and getting better at my expertise, and people want to hear what you have to say. So I don't mean to sound, but I really haven't had that experience yet in my career. I feel like I've always gotten to where I wanted to go. So my strategy, at least so far, so good, knock on wood, has been just to focus on being the best me.
And good fortune too, in that sense.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that what was so great about Nikki's example is that I don't know, and I say this as a woman myself, though not a woman scientist, but maybe it's not too late, I think you handled that so well, because I think sometimes we're caught off guard when someone treats us a certain way and we don't, and then we later on say, I sort of let that happen, or I didn't respond in the best way. And I think that you were just so forthright and just let the person, you educated that person. Like, nope. Have you ever experienced something like that where you felt like there was a hurdle put up, or the way someone treated you because you were a woman in this field?
Yeah, absolutely. And I still get challenged with that to this day. And you just really have to assert yourself. And whenever I talk to a group of women, because I want to encourage other women to just build that confidence and keep going, set your goals, and then keep moving in that direction. But I always tell them, when you go into the room, you're going into the room as an engineer, as a scientist, as a researcher, and you have a brain, and that's what we brought you in the company for, right? Is to provide us with the knowledge that you have, because your experiences are totally different than anybody else in the room, and that's why we need diverse teams.
For sure.
And so I think it's very important to do that. And another thing is, you're not always going to have somebody that encourages you or says great job, or like when you're in high school or college, or you would get that motivation. It's like, oh, okay, I've got the energy to move forward. Sometimes you've got to stretch your arm back on your back and pat yourself on the back yourself. And that's your encouragement. It might not be from the person next to you or your boss or your boss's boss. And so you have to continue to encourage yourself. Positive affirmations. I keep this saying on my refrigerator that says, "You are amazing." Remember that. And those are the things that you continually tell yourself, and motivate yourself to reach those goals and those higher levels.
That's good universal advice. Really good. Marissa, I know you're early on and you're in your career, in your educational career, and you said you came from a small town and your peers were sort of surprised, but have you encountered anything else along those lines that have sort of been discouraging, or that you felt like you had to sort of fight against?
I can't think of one off the top of my head. One of the things about biomedical engineering is, I was just talking about this earlier with some students, it's pretty 50-50. It's one of the few engineering majors, at least in college right now, where there's a lot more women showing interest. I think maybe because it's sort of related to a medical field, people who are interested in fields like nursing are migrating towards this biomedical engineering as a first step. So I think that's part of the reason I haven't really seen it. There's also a lot of great professors at Lawrence Tech, and other students have told me they've had issues, but I've never had it.
That's good.
If I can just say, that makes me so happy.
Right.
That you have never experienced that, and you are already almost graduated from your undergrad. That's. I hope that you can say that 20 years from now.
Progress. That's wonderful. I'm going to switch gears just a little bit, because everyone on this panel, even you, Marissa, you may not think of yourself yet in this capacity. You're leaders. You're scientists, but you're also leaders. And leadership, leaning in, leading from behind, they're all kind of hot topics right now. How would you define your leadership style? Did you practice leadership? If you had any anecdotes of when you learned like a really powerful kind of leadership lesson that you now would like to impart to everyone here? Anyone can jump in. Whoever wants to go first.
So I started my leadership career here as president of Tau Beta Pi.
Ooh.
I actually still have my ring on today. I actually do wear it regularly when I'm not at the hospital. So for me, it always reminds me that I guess I had never really thought of myself in a leadership capacity until that job came up. And we all kind of know that nobody really wants those jobs, but somebody's got to do it because people are busy. You've got school, you've got finals, and these sorts of things are nice to do, but they are that extra layer.
And very often, if you're really good at something, then all of a sudden you become a leader in
Yes.
it. And that doesn't mean you're actually good at
Or if you
leading
miss
it.
the
It just
meeting.
means you were good at doing it.
Yes.
So
And that makes a huge difference.
Yep.
When I was starting out, in my graduate school career and even through my medical school career, I think I felt like I could be a leader, but I didn't really have that skill set. I didn't have that confidence.
Right.
I will say there's one thing about surgical training. You will be confident. You will be confidently wrong, but you will still be confident. That is what they teach you. So for that, it very much changed my demeanor, how I walk in a room. That is more of a learned behavior. And I think that I feel very fortunate that I had people who had those high expectations of me during that part of my medical training, because I don't feel that it's emphasized enough, certainly
Right.
not in my engineering training. And I
Yeah.
think that is an area that engineering could focus on more.
education and leadership, I think, is definitely underutilized. I mean, and I think like you're going now for your executive MBA.
Oh, and they actually assign everyone
It's a huge thing.
personal coach.
Yeah, I believe that. I
And
believe that.
at first, I kind of went, okay, who's going to use a personal coach? Oh, personal coaches are amazing. If
Yeah,
you
well, look at
ever
that.
have the opportunity to get yourself a good quality personal coach to help you out, just for a little while even, take it. It is, you need that cheerleader. Like you said, Donna, nobody's there to pat you on the back.
Mm-hmm.
This experience will teach you how to have those skills so you can do that with confidence.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah.
So very often, though, you learn leadership on the job. You learn it, through osmosis and through modeling and your own kind of failures and successes. So does anyone else want to jump in on your leadership experience?
I think for me, a lot of where because I was thinking about mentors in your life, and
Yeah.
I think my first mentors were my parents. I was blessed. I had very good parents, and they just always focused on, be first in line to help somebody out if they need it.
Nice.
You're getting paid to do a job, do the job, but they taught me really good
Values.
ethics going into that. And so when I first went into my first job at EDS, those two help because everybody likes somebody that can execute and get something done.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though I was young in my career, my ability to get something done was like, okay, well, can you lead other people to get other things done? And so you become a leader just by that. So that
By trying to
I always
accomplish the
focus,
goal.
just getting something done gets
Yeah.
you a lot of attention. And people want to be around people that that are competent and will get something done. And so I think that's helped out a lot. And I think as a leader too is just, being approachable. I'm willing to roll up my sleeves no matter what it is and work right alongside with you.
That's really important.
I prefer to say I work with you, not you work for me. I've never said you've worked for me. So I want to be that team player right in there.
See, that speaks to your leadership style too, which is very interesting.
And the other thing too, one other thing I noticed that I think is going to be really important for the young students graduating now is we're in a global world. So you have to you'll be working, you'll be on conference calls with people in other places in the world. And so understanding other cultures because they are different. And so whenever I
really
work with a
important.
new country, the first thing I do is I'm studying about what they like, what they don't like, what's offensive, so you really get to learn that.
That's really, really good advice. Yeah. And not making those assumptions. At minimum, don't make the assumptions you know. So that's great. Donna, did you want to speak to leadership?
Well, so similar to Nikki, I started off my leadership in Lawrence Tech as the president of NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers.
Wonderful.
And so started to spread my wings in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Very much an introvert. And so was really shy.
Really?
Didn't really talk to people. Yeah.
I would not guess that.
And so I had to develop it over time. And I think
Mhm.
being a leader requires you to have a relationship with people. It requires you to engage and to network and to socialize. And
Yeah.
so just over time, you develop those skills, and you want to see things be successful. You know, you look at, I think about the Lawrence Tech Alumni Association, and I really enjoyed that, you know, and I had a passion for that. And I wanted to see the organization succeed, and then people just followed, you know, because I had that passion. So, yeah, you know, I don't know that I have a specific style, whether it's leaning in or
Positive.
You know, lead from behind, but
Yeah.
it's more of engagement.
And enthusiasm
Exactly,
and modeling.
exactly. I'm you know, I'm very conscious of that, and the position in the organization, because people don't want to speak to you because you're at a certain level and things like that. And so I try to engage and smile and hi and, you know, things like that. But
Sure.
I think that's a part of being a leader as well. You know, just having that open space where people feel comfortable coming in.
Sure, that makes
being
so
able
much
to talk
sense.
to you.
Marissa, you might have had a taste of leadership in some ways. I mean, if you've like led like a project, or what you might have encountered a little bit was a leadership challenge during your research experience, right? Where you could see like, here were two people that were supposed to be managing you and they weren't communicating, and then you had to sort of like help them. So you were sort of the victim of some maybe not perfect management. So do you have anything to share about that? Like that you sort of get a sense of like what you, if you've given some thought about what kind of leader you will be, because you eventually will be a leader yourself, whether you realize it or not.
So I guess from my experiences with research projects, I've done more than one. So I've had more than just that particular professor. And the ones who I worked the best with were the professors who taught me how to do something. They taught me a skill, or they, you know, showed me how to do a specific reaction or a test. And then they enabled me to do it by myself. They gave me that chance to sort of try it on my own, and they gave me that trust. And they also allowed me to teach other students. Like, you know you're well-knowledged in a subject when you can teach someone else. And I think the same thing goes for leadership. Leading by example and enabling other people to be leaders is the best way to lead, because more leaders is always good.
Yeah.
So enabling others, I don't know, that's the best way I've seen.
I think that's very profound. I think that's a great point. Yeah. This is sort of, we're going to lean back into the specific aspect of being like a woman leader and a woman scientist, woman in STEM. And that, do you feel like your approach throughout when your lives and your careers, that you, because you're a woman, that you've modified yourself in some ways, that you've, and if not, because I think, Terry, I'm sort of thinking you might not have, because maybe you have, but do you feel like sometimes if you're in a conflict, you're like, well, and sometimes I think we do this unconsciously, where it's like, well, I'm in it with a group of men, or I'm you know, managing men, or I'm the one, like there's not that many women in this group, and I have to be mindful about the way I communicate, or the way I present myself, or the way I articulate something. Have you ever felt that need to sort of modify yourself because you were a woman in some kind of situation throughout your careers? Sorry. And anyone who has felt that.
Yeah, I'll give an example.
Yeah,
so I think for me, there are two aspects of being a woman and being an African American woman.
Fair.
And I think people sometimes they expect that you're going to react a certain way. And so I am conscious about how I respond or how I engage in a conversation.
Right.
Just so I can actually get get to the resolution, right? I want to be able to eliminate anybody's thought of how I'm supposed to react. I want to eliminate that.
Because you want to get to the outcome.
That's right. Just because I want to get the issue resolved, and I don't want there to be anything added to trying to make that happen. So yes. So for me, I am very conscious about it, and even to the point where I plan on how I'm going to approach a conversation.
Wow.
So I really have to think about how I'm going to approach that.
This could be sort of hot buttony, but is there something in particular, like some specific behaviors that you avoid, or something you intentionally do? Can you give us like an example of something where you feel, I mean, I think that this is just owning this sort of burden sometimes, you know, in order to be heard with, you know, without bias in a way. And I think that's what you're just trying to do. You just, you know, you just want your time.
I want to get rid of any, exactly.
Right.
I want to get rid of any bias
Right.
before I go into it. And again, it's just about planning it out, because so there are different outcomes, right? So I can respond in a certain way, and I know that it's going to end up the wrong way. Or I can sit back. First of all, I've got to get the emotion out, right?
See, that's what I was trying to get.
That's right.
Yep, emotion.
As soon as somebody says something to me that draws emotion, I have to figure out how to mitigate that.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not talking to that person right away. Maybe it's waiting until tomorrow,
Sure.
or next week, until I can get that emotion out and have a civilized conversation.
Right.
I don't know that I've ever been in a situation where I've had, say, an emotional outburst. There's never been something that I've wanted to do.
Yep.
Just because, you know, especially depending on who's in the room.
Right. And by that you mean whether it's like tears or sadness or you're overwhelmed or anger or bite.
That's right. Any emotion.
Yeah.
I try to control it the best that I possibly can. Now, okay, there might be some exceptions, right? Because some people just kind of take you there.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you know, you try
keep it together.
That's right. You try to breathe and think things through. And people have commented quite often, you're very calm under pressure. And it's because I practice.
You've cultivated that.
Yeah, that's
You've
right.
had
I had to practice. Otherwise, they wouldn't say, they wouldn't say that. So, yeah, absolutely. It's something that I have to work at.
Anyone else have anything to add to that?
Well, I think Donna actually just hit a really deep pool right there.
Yeah,
because
I do too.
I would say that's more than just as a woman. I think that's the mark of a great leader.
Yeah.
Because you always have to, in that split second when something happens, stop and think to yourself, how many different ways can this go? Which way do I need it to go? Which way do I want it to go? And what am I going to say next? And I don't necessarily think that's unique of women. I think that's unique of all great leaders. But I do think that unfortunately women do probably have to encounter those sorts of moments a little more frequently.
Yeah, because don't you think, to be real, I mean, I totally agree with you. That is the perfect world. But I feel like women are not given the same latitude that men would be, or in this case also African American as opposed to white, to own that as well. They're not given the same latitude for any indiscretion in that way, or any flair of like a misstep when it comes to your poised leadership persona.
Well, I think that in my own experience, my leadership style is I want my team members to be successful.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter so much because I know if my team members are successful in whatever way they need to be successful, and that requires listening to them and saying, all right, what goal do you need to have? How can I help you get there? As a result, the project will be successful, as you said, and you will be successful. There are people who maybe have different agendas, and there are, unfortunately, a few people out there who truly just like to find your hot buttons, and they're out there to mess with you. And I've only found one or two people like that. And I think, Donna, you're right. When you know that person is they're just there to push your button. They're just waiting. I just find ways to not have to deal with that person. And there are other ways around. Most of the time, you really don't have to have that confrontation. Or as you said, let it sit in your email inbox for a day. Your answer will always be better tomorrow.
Yeah. That's good advice. I heard recently that Abraham Lincoln actually there was some historian who said that he used to write these like hate letters, and then he would, because back then we didn't have Twitter, and then he would ball it up. He would ball it up and throw it. He'd just write it. He'd sit on it for a night, and then he'd throw it away. And I thought that's so interesting because that's really good advice in general for all of us. And Abe Lincoln was doing it back in the day, so it's got to be right. Anything else on that front? I think it's interesting too because I love what you said, Nikki, because I love that you said that really that's how everyone should be. Because part of what I was going to add to this question was, is that fair we have to? I mean, that you have to as women. Is it fair? And so I still think there's a dynamic to that too. I mean, I agree that that's how everyone should be, but that there's this extra burden and responsibility that you have to, you know, I guess I didn't know if anyone wants to speak to that. Like, is progress where that you don't have to anymore? Will we ever get to that day?
As I've had more years in leadership roles and I've been exposed to different types of leaders, I find that my expectations for the leaders around me have gotten much higher. And if I find somebody who is obviously not a good leader, but they're in a leadership position, you're not going to tell them that. But
That's good advice.
sometimes you tell them that. Occasionally I've told them this. But I will say that knowing different leadership approaches, different management techniques, will help you realize that person's mistake.
Sure.
And then you can see the workaround for that.
Right.
That is not something I would have seen early in my career. That is
Yeah.
something that 20 some years later,
Yeah.
you get that experience, you see your own fumbles, you see the fumbles of the people you work for. When you're the person that you think is just the greatest person ever to work for does something really dumb, you say, why did they do that?
Yeah.
And you say, well, what could they have done better? And if I ever get to be in that position, I'm going to remember what happened to this person that I idolized or was my hero when they made their misstep, so that I don't do that same thing.
I actually, this may sound cruel of me, but I actually appreciate those experiences a little bit when there's someone you really idolize and admire, because I think if a lot of times, sometimes we think, oh, I will never be them, you know. So I think that when we realize that that even the people we admire are human, it gives us permission to also really to forgive ourselves for our own missteps, you know. So I try to turn it into like a positive all around and just realize their humanity, you know.
At the end of the day, people are just people. Nobody is
Exactly.
that fabulous.
Exactly. And we're all a work in
Yeah.
progress that never ends. That never ends, no matter where you are in your career.
I always laugh because in my travels, I'm like, people are people in every country.
Yes.
We're the same cast of characters everywhere in the world.
So true.
Exactly.
It always fascinates me, like, wow, we really are all the same, even though we live in different places.
Sure.
Yes, common themes.
I want to broaden this a little bit too, to the idea that when you guys are trailblazers, you really are, you know. It's weird to think of yourselves that way, probably, but I can tell, Nikki, you're like, I don't know that
I know some people who are real trailblazers,
It's true,
and
but
I
think
feel
you
like
still
I'm just hanging on the
qualify.
coattails.
Maybe you're at the tail end of the trail, but you're still, maybe someone blazed it a little bit before you. It made it a little easier, but you're still trailblazers, you know. It's not as common to have women in the fields that you're in, and that sometimes it's amazing. It's an amazing thing, and I know even if you're like sort of begrudgingly accepting that that's true, but on the other hand, it's also a burden, because then do you ever feel like you're representing, and I'm sure, Donna, you can speak to this, that it's like, well, I can't make mistakes because my mistakes are judged in a different prism, in a broader prism, and then I'm going to be affecting how people might perceive Marissa. You know, if I'm the first woman who's doing this and I don't succeed, well, how is that going to affect the generation of girls after me? You know, do you feel that burden for representing sort of a collective because you might be viewed that way in your fields? Anyone?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because I don't think of myself as a woman in that field. I think of myself as trying to be the best I can be.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, like when you guys invited me for the panel here tonight, I thought, wow, I guess I am a woman in a STEM field. I hadn't really thought about it that way for a while because I just do what I do.
Right.
And I think that if you put that pressure on yourself, you're not going to be as effective.
Right.
And you're just going to make yourself miserable.
And you'll spend time focusing on, again, to my way, on other people versus focusing on being the best you, and I can be the best.
It diverts your energy.
It diverts
Yeah.
your energy, yeah.
Donna, how do you feel about that?
It's for me, it's a little bit different because I don't know. I bear the responsibility for so many, and I don't know why. I think it's back to how I was raised, right, and wanting to help other people, and so even in my current job, whenever I see an opportunity for someone else, I pull them along, right? Even if they aren't ready to be pulled along, I'm pulling them along.
Because a lot of times we're not ready, actually.
Yeah.
That's another thing. You think you have to wait to be ready, and you'll wait forever then.
That's right. And you know, there's this one of my colleagues. I told her, I said, well, you know, just hold on to the rope and just get dirty
Yeah,
because I'm
I like
I'm about to ride you through the dirt, right?
That's the expression of the night. Hold on to the rope and get dirty.
That's right. Yeah, you know, you're gonna have dust and dirt all over your face because I'm pulling you along, and I really feel like it's my responsibility to pull people out of their insecurities, right? I see that there's a leader in you, and I want you to succeed.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to pull you along until you just decide to let go and just say, you know what, I'm not ready.
Right.
But I do feel like I have a responsibility to help women, engineers, African Americans, just
Sure.
underrepresented minorities,
Absolutely.
right? Just underrepresented people in general.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's my responsibility to help. And I know that's a big burden to carry, but I don't know. I'll continue to carry it until I can't carry it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're both really valuable perspectives, because I think what Nikki and Terry are saying is that you almost can't worry about what other people think, like, yes, that might be going on, that, that people are judging you like based on, or other people based on this idea of like, well, you're representing women now. I'm not sure about women in this field because you represent the collective of women, but that's their problem. Do the best job you can, and you can't worry about that. And I think it's very valid, perspective. And then I'm sure you guys down there would also echo what Donna's saying too, that you can do that and you can still say, I see other people who are like me. I know that this is underrepresented, and I really want to help make this a more diverse field and do everything I can to help.
I will sucker anyone and everyone along for the ride.
Yeah.
Because it's a fun ride. I don't think anyone should miss out. So I totally agree with Donna. I think you are right. I mean, if you don't reach out to other people and tell them how amazing they are,
Right.
then that is a problem. But do I feel like as a woman I have to stand up?
No. Marissa, do you have a mentor? Do you have someone who's done that for you so far in any way yet?
I can't think of one person. I can just think of a lot of people who helped me with little steps.
Yeah, sure.
It's like my parents were encouraging to me, my coaches encouraged me, my professors and teachers and research advisors. And I feel like all of them helped me, but in a different way. There's not like one person I can attribute it all to.
That's probably true for all of us.
One thing
Yeah.
I always tell young women too is, don't ever hesitate to reach out and ask for help. If you want a mentor, go ask. I'm sure the person you ask will be so flattered and will be so willing to help you.
Not a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
Never a
I'm
sign of
like,
weakness.
That's very good
everybody.
advice, too.
It's just
That is true.
Like at work, I do it a lot. I do some through the colleges too. But I'm like, never be afraid to ask somebody. Will you
People
mentor me?
love to be recognized that they're good at something. And when you come up and tell them, I really admire you in this way and I would love for you to help me, usually most people, unless you're like, are really very flattered and really responsive to that, I've found.
And I think
So
we all want to give back. We
Sure.
realize that, we all want to give back. For sure.
yeah, absolutely. So what would all of you, and I know you're at different points in your career, different points in your education and everything, what would you tell your younger self if you could, like, is there something along the way you're like, well, I wish I didn't worry so much about this, or I wish I'd done a little more of this, or and by virtue of telling your younger self, what you're telling is everyone else who's at different points in their career what you would impart to them. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please.
So I think I would tell my younger self, I spent a lot of time caring about what people thought about me, right? I think I would tell my younger self, to ignore that.
Yeah.
And because that does hold you back.
That's the
a
blinders
lot.
thing that Terry's talking about.
Yep, that's right. It really holds you back, and it doesn't help with your confidence, especially if it's somebody that you admire, and they don't show that they like you.
Yeah, you take that very personally.
Yeah, you take it personally, and it's not personal.
Right.
And so I think it's very important early on to realize that not everybody's gonna like you. Just get over it and move on.
Exactly. Exactly.
That is true. Anyone else? Do you want to share something? Is there something that you would tell, like, little Marissa?
I would have told little Marissa to do more things like this, because for me, I have a hard time expressing myself in words, and I get nervous actually public speaking. And I've been practicing more since I've been in college, but I tended to avoid it before then. And I realized that the only way to grow is to put yourself out of your comfort zone, whether
So
it's
true.
in your career, in sports, in life. You have to try new things and be willing to feel really awkward sometimes, because
Yeah.
I'm an awkward person.
And then
I
you
just
have to think-
accept it.
We all are awkward deep down somewhere. You know, that's the thing you also have to realize. But I think you also have to realize too is try to think, well, what's the worst that could happen? You know, will this matter a year from now? You know, is this going to severely? Probably not. You know, so I think that helps too.
Actually, I think Marissa brings up a great point. My expectation is that every day I am going to do the dumbest, most awkward thing.
So you're
When
setting
I-
the bar low.
Like, yeah, you start really low. When I was younger, I tried to, higher, and I realized, no, just put it right down there. And as a result, I realized that the people who are like-minded, who have similar values, we gravitate to each other. People who don't share that same value system as you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might be friends on Facebook, you might still get that Christmas card, but they don't really affect your life every day.
Right.
But the people who have that, they are that kindred spirit.
Right.
They will stay with you and they will support you on these things. And at
true.
the end of the day, do you really care what that really good-looking guy in your math class thinks? No, you really don't.
Yeah. Maybe a little.
Who cares at the end of the day? At the time you might, but long term you don't even remember who his name is. So, and he's probably thinning hair and a little pouchy.
Yeah.
So I mean, you win. You still come out on top. and
Bullet
it's okay.
dodged.
Yes.
I think for me, is I wish at a younger age like learning how to, because I was always studying, never took a lot of time for me. So learning better at a younger age, I think our parents,
The balance?
especially when you've got children that really want to do good,
Yeah.
teaching them like, okay, you need to take a time out and go do something. And then I'd say the other thing for me is learning how to say no. I tend to help too much.
That's a big one.
And then you're
That's a
working 50
huge
hours a week 'cause
one.
You're helping everybody, or way more time. I would say working probably 80 hours a week because you're helping everybody. So,
Yeah. And I think that is a
those
very
are two things I struggle with. Those
female
are two
thing.
things.
The struggle to say no, I think, in particular, can be so tough. So tough.
And I think as a woman, sometimes we tend to try to take on maybe more to show we can.
Yeah.
In some cases too.
That's true.
We try to show we can do it.
So do you guys have hope for women in STEM fields? How do you feel about that? It sounds like it. I do.
Oh, I think it's going to be so cool.
I know.
I think with the way technology is moving along, like in my field,
Right.
like the cool things you can do, like even what you're doing, like it's just like the sky's the limit. I mean, you can do so many fun things now and things that you can invent and create. I think it's
know.
just fascinating. I'm jealous.
Well, you're still in it. You're still in it.
I think the opportunities have always been there, but I don't think we've done a very good job of teaching girls how to ask.
Yeah.
And I think that is the challenge, at
Yep.
least from my perspective. I don't think that we need to create new opportunities. They're all there. But we just need to teach girls it's okay to step up and say, I want to try that.
Yeah.
That's okay. And I feel that is where we still need to do work.
Well, part of that, and I'll speak from my Metro parent experience, is that girls are taught early on that they're more afraid of failing than boys, because parents sort of it's that gender kind of way that they don't even realize that they're
Girls
parenting
are
them.
horrible to each other.
Yes.
We are the worst judges. All those prom dresses, were you dressing up for the boys? You were not dressing up for the boys. You were dressing up to impress the other girls in the class.
Yeah, because that's
That's how it goes.
it speaks to the different way that girls bully, because girls bully emotionally, boys bully physically, and so that's another part of it that I think can be at play, so if a girl goes out and tries to leap into something that's, that deviates from the norm or what her peers do, she's more likely to feel that on an emotional level. Maybe Marissa didn't, or she's just got the fortitude that she did not care, but good for her. But yeah, I think that all of that is at play. It's really interesting. Have you guys ever heard of imposter syndrome?
I have.
Right here.
Yeah.
Right here.
As you guys were all talking, I was thinking about, I thought, I suffer from it. And I thought, you're all my sisters in imposter syndrome. I can feel it. I can feel it. I will tell you, yes, thank you. So imposter syndrome is you can be a really accomplished person, but somehow you feel like you didn't deserve it, and you're going to be found out, and people are going to realize you're a hack, and you're not smart, and that somehow you just lucked out, and you just sort of stumbled into your success. And you're just a big imposter. And more and more people you realize are talking about this is a thing. Like really accomplished people think, oh, and so it's a struggle because in everything you do, and you reminded me of this, Nikki, when you said that you start every day assuming you're going to make a fool of yourself.
Well, I usually do. It's a correct assumption.
That sounds like classic imposter syndrome a little bit, where you're starting the bar so low for yourself, and then you just sort of hope that you can climb above that. So, but it's hard. And I think I wanted to share that with all of you who hadn't heard of it, because you might also feel like, wow, I've had moments like that. And it's also interesting too, I think, to know when wherever you're at in your education, when you realize, oh my gosh, this really accomplished person thinks that they really, don't deserve their success and aren't really that great. That's so humbling, I think, and helpful sort of to know that when you have those moments, you're not alone. So,
well, and I think what I've learned, especially, again, since I started the MBA program, which has been very different than all of the other STEM things I've done and has been quite insightful, is it's okay if you're not good at everything.
Yeah.
Girls need to think that they have to be great at everything.
So true.
I know that if I show up at work without makeup and I'm wearing scrubs all day and I'm going to be sitting on the floor looking at some leg wound or something like that, I am not going to be a fashion model. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be like, hey, who's that hot girl walking down the... No, that's not going to happen. But if there's an emergency and somebody's bleeding, I know I can walk in there and I can take care of that.
Yep.
So I think girls need to forgive themselves a little
Yes,
bit and
so
pick and
true.
choose those battles. You can't cover all the bases at once. If you want to look like a fashion model, that's great. But you're going to give something else up because you're spending your time and energy doing that. If you want to spend your summer doing an internship, it means you're not going to be out doing other fun things with your friends. You can't be everywhere at once. And you have to just decide that's an okay thing. Pick and choose the things that are really important. And don't worry about making everyone else happy. Do what's important for you.
Yeah.
Know you're not going to get everything done.
Yeah.
But the things that really matter, you're going to go far. And you will have confidence that you will be able to take care of that business, whatever it is, as time goes forward, because you've had that experience.
I think that's great. So we just have a couple minutes left before we kick it to any questions from the audience. But I thought it would be fun to end on this note of is there anything you want to share, your science geek thing, the thing that you're really passionate about, that you love, that sort of you just sort of want to show that little personal side, but maybe again, a sciencey geek thing, you just love it and you want to share it with everyone, little fact or something, or maybe some show you love, or anyone have that? Or is it all just professional? You have no personal science geekiness.
No. So I will confess.
Okay, I want it.
This career I have this is not my real career.
Okay.
My real career, I'm still trying to be a rock star. Actually, I'll probably be a big concert venue producer at this point in time, because I started at Lawrence Tech in electrical engineering because I wanted to build an effects rack for my electric guitar.
Oh, what? Oh,
An effects rack, all the fancy pedals and everything. And yeah, I still haven't built it. I finally realized I'm just going to buy it.
So you're a metalhead? Is that the...
I'm like, yeah, it's not going to look good if I try to solder anything these days. I should just buy something. So yeah, so that was actually my original plan. When I came here, I was going to go into, music engineering and sound, and somehow I ended up a doctor.
Look at
Still
that.
trying to figure that one out. So.
But see, it starts with interest. Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Yeah.
This isn't my story, but picking up on your rock star, my sister.
It's not too late, Terry.
My sister. No, this is what you're gonna love this story. My sister, when she turned 40, decided she wanted to learn how to play guitar. Right, so she learned to play a guitar. Right.
Yeah.
And then she coerced her friends. Let's be a soccer mom band. Right. So they go out and I used to go watch her, and I'm like, oh, they weren't that. It was this little thing, and everybody, the Wall Street Journal, found out about it. They were in People. I mean, it was.
Which is it, the Midals or is it the Candy Band?
The Midals. Yes,
The Midals.
But the interesting thing that my sister wrote a book about how she always wanted to be a rock star.
Yeah.
Right?
That's amazing.
She writes this book, then the people come to her, they purchase the rights to the book.
Judy.
Right now it's finalizing to be.
Is it Judy?
Yeah, it's my sister. Oh my God. It's in the process of being a movie. I mean, how weird is that?
That's awesome.
I want to learn, and it's now it's
The one thing we've learned is you don't actually have to have talent to be a successful rock star.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it's just a weird thing what you were talking about. Oh my gosh, I got to tell you
We're
this
having
story.
lunch, Terry. This is a great story.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Look at that small world. Marissa, what is something that you get all science geeky about? Is a show you love or something you love to read about just for fun?
Well, I do love the show Bones.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
think I could ever be a forensic anthropologist, and I don't think that's actually the way like criminal investigations go.
Probably not.
But it's really cool to watch, and it makes you feel really smart when you know what they're talking about when they're using like the mass spectrometer. You know, I watched it when I was a kid, and I was like, I don't know what that is. Sounds cool. And then I got to college, and I was like, oh, I know how that works now.
Oh, cool.
So that was cool. I also, this is strange, but working with the bacterial cultures, I would come in the lab in the morning and like that awful smell. Because I was so excited that all my bacteria were alive.
Oh.
I was like, oh, they're not all dead.
So as a positive.
So
That's
Marissa,
cool.
you are in the right field, and that's a good thing.
it really does not smell good, but when you smell it, you're like, oh, it worked.
It was a smell of success.
It's the smell of success.
That's
Just
awesome.
isn't good.
That's great. Donna, do you have anything?
Sure. So I think I mentioned it earlier, but the whole science fair
Yes.
thing, yeah.
What was your best experience? What was that you remember when you think the pinnacle of your science fair achievement?
Okay, so it wasn't really a science project.
Oh,
It was more of I was in speech, but I tied it to science. And it was about how you can use Tide to get your clothes clean. And I had a white sock and I had a black sock. And so my presentation just showed that, hey, look, if you use Tide, you can go from this sock to this sock, right? So, and this was speech. And I know people were looking at me like, okay, really? But yeah, I've always been excited about science. I even had friends that would call me and say, can you help my kids with their science project? And I'm like, oh, yeah, we got to go shopping and get all the stuff. But more recently, one of the more geeky things that I've done, I did a lot of flying back and forth to California, and I couldn't wait to get on the airplane to watch Genius, which was the story of Albert Einstein.
Yes.
And
yes.
I couldn't wait to get back on the plane so I could see the next episode.
Yeah.
I didn't even try to find it like on Netflix or anything like that. I just, got comfortable on the plane, but I was really excited about
Oh, that's
it. So.
awesome. Awesome. So does anyone have any questions? Oh, sure.
Electrical engineering and electrical and computer science and engineering management.
Biomedical engineering?
Good Lord.
She's
So
a lot.
electrical engineering, biomedical engineering, medical school, general surgery, 1 year of radiology, vascular surgery, MBA. Yeah, I'm just too stupid to get out of
But
school.
she thinks she's an imposter.
And I'm in information technology.
Cool. Any other questions?
So how did y'all balance it with the rest of your life? Did you marry? Did you have children? Did you wait? Did you not have them?
That's a good question. Not married. I have cats. Cats, I come home, they're fine. If I leave, they're fine. It's perfect.
The beauty of cats.
It is. It's okay. No, I actually, when I was younger, I had a couple opportunities to meet some very nice guys, and they were looking to get married. They were bringing me home to meet mom. And I realized that the expectation was that if I said I had homework to do, they were done with school at that time. We were all graduated, and they couldn't relate. And it got to the point where I started to do badly in school. When I was in electrical engineering grad school at U of M, I almost failed out of quantum mechanics. And one, it just was hard. And two, I kind of blamed the boyfriend a little bit.
Yeah.
So I realized that I had to decide what was going to be important to me. And for me, my school, my future was what I wanted. And if he didn't see that, and it wasn't important to him as well, because at that time I had no plans on going to medical school or doing this crazy stuff I've done. But if he couldn't be supportive of what was so important to me, then I needed to let that relationship go. So I think that, I think that there's some things I've missed out on, but I think that I've gotten so much back, and I've had so many amazing opportunities. I mean, I tell people I've had a chance to do rocket science and brain surgery all within about 10 years. How many people get to say that?
Pretty cool.
And not that husbands and spouses and kids and everyone else, not that they're not important. For me, I love to learn. I love to solve problems. And that draw to me is such a passion. It's so strong that these other things for me, I was okay saying no. And I didn't feel like, because at the time a lot of my friends got married because they felt they had to get married. You know, they had dated the guy through high school and college, and
Yeah.
now they graduated, and everyone's getting married, so we're going to get married. My best friend got married to her boyfriend of 10 years. We all went to first grade together. They
Yeah.
started dating in high school, and at the end of college, they got married. Their marriage lasted for less than 2 years. Because they did it because that was what everyone else was doing. They expected it.
Yeah.
And they didn't have time to explore their own interests and careers because they'd always been together. So I actually feel very fortunate that I realized that early on, and I learned my passion, and I was able to do
I think
that.
you can do it,
Yeah.
but I feel like the people I've always observed, and I don't know how many of you saw the Ruth Bader Ginsburg documentary, but her husband was amazing. I mean, he left a very important, and so I think that the point is you have to, if you're a woman who really has career aspirations, professional pursuits, and you want the husband and the kids, you're going to have to find the right person. And that's not always easy. You have to find the right person who isn't basically asking you to not do your homework because it's inconvenient, you know? So that's the tricky thing. It's not impossible, but that's the bar. Otherwise, you're going to have to choose. And that's what's difficult. He did, yeah. Very amazing. So interesting example.
That saying that you can have it all, and I don't think you can. You can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time.
Yeah, yep.
There's going to be something.
There's a season,
Kids
yeah.
aren't going to get fed. They're going to eat TV dinners.
Yep.
And you're going to be in
Yeah, you're not going to be Susie Homemaker and, yeah.
possibly
There's-
be everywhere at the same time.
There is, and I hate to say it, there is a clock for women that men do not have.
Yeah.
And that is something that has gotten extended quite a bit, but
Thanks to
it's a clock
science.
nonetheless. And I think, unfortunately, women do have to decide that. When I turned 40, I kind of stopped and I said, okay, do you want a nice normal life, or are you happy with the abnormal life you've had thus far? And I had to think about it for a little while, and I decided, I've been abnormal this whole time, and I'm just going to stay that way.
Yeah.
But I think every woman, including myself, hits that milestone when you have to ask, which way do you really want your life to be? You know, You're halfway through. Are you happy with your first half? What do you want to change for your second half? And if you don't ask that question, then you're missing out. You're not missing out on the details, but if you don't think to really question your decisions and make up your plan for the next
Yeah.
chunk of your life, then that's the problem.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
I'm also a 3-time alumni from Lawrence Tech, but I recall
Wonderful.
engineering, even in leadership position, always getting around a group of men, and they wanted me to take the notes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Can you get the donuts? You can bring the donuts for the meeting, right?
And you know what? I really didn't mind, and I'm just saying this for the other students, but it came to a point where I said, you know what? The last 4 times I did it, let's have you do it this time.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Good for you.
Smart. Some of the people
Yep.
weren't happy about that, but I learned over the years, even as a leader, because I call myself a servant leader, that I had to make sure they understood that I'm not the secretary here.
Right,
Exactly.
yeah.
You have a value to bring, and even though I'm going to serve you to get the best out of you, I need us all to respect and do the same.
Yeah, some
thing. So
reciprocity.
I had to work through those different scenarios where a lot of times we will be called on, especially in a male-dominated industry, to do things that are what I call, what
Yes.
women would normally
Or
do.
they're, you know, women can handle multiple things.
Yes.
But just like you know, the first a couple times, yeah, I'm being a team player. And then after that, it's like, is your hand broken?
Yeah.
You know, you just got to do exactly like you're doing. It's just
Assert
make a
yourself.
joke and just say, you did the exact right thing. A few
Yep.
times, fine. After this, nope, we need to rotate.
So they try
Yeah.
to get me out and say, well, you do it better. You're awesome.
Yeah, I just say, well, that's okay.
Oh,
I always
sneaky.
tell them, and and just tell them I need a break. Right. No, you can have it this time.
Yeah. No, I just don't do it. And if it doesn't get done, I say, well, why didn't you do it? Do I look like your mother?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'm not.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
No, I'm with you, right? In the beginning, it was about how people viewed me, right? And if I didn't participate, she's not a team player or whatever the case may be. But now when it happens, I just sit back or I start taking notes or, in my own notebook and let somebody else go forward. And I heard the word assert, right?
Yep.
Just assert yourself that I'm not going to go in here and do this, even though I really like writing on the
Dry erase
flip
board.
chart.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, Donna, you can't do it every time. People expect you to do that. So
You're doing the
So
right thing.
we're technically at time. Do you want me to ask any more questions, or do you want to wrap up?
I know I'm the cameraman, but
Oh, wonderful! I love it. Yeah, ask a question.
first I want to say that I might be a little bit different from the males that you guys might have been talking about. I don't know, I see myself, like, I actually enjoy the fact that you guys have your position and also you with your research project and whatnot. But where am I trying to go with this? Geez, maybe it's these headphones. I can hear myself.
Oh, yeah, that's distracting. Yeah, take those off.
So what I wanted to say is, like, I'm in this principles of management class right now, and we're learning about appreciative inquiry. So it's like in the workforce, and when you're dealing with different individuals, you kind of focus on the positive and instead of focusing on the negative.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to know, like, in you guys' fields, like, how do you kind of incorporate that type of leadership style with your work staff to kind of make I don't know, do you guys have, like, I don't know, I want to say employees kind of work
Yeah,
together?
sure. Yeah, for sure.
Where teams work together and kind of reach business objectives and whatnot?
for me, I think it goes back to how you make people feel, right? So when you leave a room, how did I make somebody feel? I never want my team to feel degraded, right? They worked hard to get to where they are. I want them to know that I appreciate their service. I appreciate what they've done to actually get us here, and I want them to know that I'm here to help them. Don't ever feel like you're stuck. And I think that's what people do. They get this thing in their head. They get afraid, or there's fear that's built up. And if I don't do it right, I'm going to get a bad performance review, or somebody's going to say something to me. I think it's really important to know that and go in with the right. You've got to have the outcome already identified in your head. All right, this is the way I want the person to feel when I leave. And it's never, for me, I want them to feel bad. Unless that's
really
your
need it.
intention,
Yeah.
right? Unless they've put you in a situation where you have to make them feel bad.
So they can be reflective.
That's right.
Yeah.
They need to think about, all right, this is what you've done, and this is the way I'm expecting you to feel. But for coaching, it's always about making sure they understand. I want you to understand that this is coaching. Don't take this personal. This is professional, and this is for your good. And then that's the conversation we're going to have, and then have myself open for them to be able to come back and get more feedback. Yeah.
I think it's important to have positive, upbeat energy environment. And when you get in those environments, if you're like always bringing it down, they're going to get demotivated. So I try to keep a positive. I always say work should be productive and fun. It should be both.
Yeah.
That's the best work environment, when you can accomplish both.
And
but
the best outcome.
There's times that you have to have those tough conversations, and those should be done privately.
Yeah.
And a
Yes.
nice coaching
For sure.
session to exactly to what you said. I think it's important to, like I said, energy is the big thing.
Yes.
Nobody wants
Yeah.
to be in a downer meeting or environment, for sure.
True.
And I think the fact that you're asking that question is very promising.
Yes.
Because, again, those kinds of classes like you're taking right now, a lot of the people that we've kind of referred back to, that we've encountered, we're not man-bashing by any
No,
means.
no.
But maybe these management approaches, like the class you're taking, are newer. And I look forward to Marissa not having some of the conversations that Donna and Terry and I might have had over the years, because there are people like you taking these classes,
Yes.
and you're going to be looking for the positive. I think that, Terry, you're right. You can always give somebody some positive feedback. You don't have to tell them all the bad things that they do.
Right.
But that is very much a learned behavior. All the surgeons I worked with, it was pretty much all the stuff you screwed up there, Kennedy, all the time. And when I would have to correct a couple of my junior residents, especially when they did something really bad that potentially could have harmed a patient.
Sure. Stakes are high.
I felt terrible after having that conversation, but I also knew it was the right thing.
You
and they
had
needed to
to.
hear it. But I don't feel it's a very efficient way to teach people. I think it's okay to let people know that they screwed something up, but you got to give them the out. You have to say, next time you see this, why don't you try this other approach, or why don't you keep this in mind? Because if you leave somebody on a bad note, they're going to shut down. They're going to fail the next time they're in that situation. You have to give them that extra coaching, like you said, Donna.
True.
And you know, I think it's important with your employees to understand what they really like to do, to really understand them personally and what they're good at, and try to give them opportunities that more draw on their talents than on their weaknesses. I think that's so important. Give them those opportunities. Give them those opportunities to do that thing. That, you know, maybe they're the person that likes to write, right? We're always hoping for that person that wants to write, right?
Yeah.
But you know, if they like to do that, try to find things for them to do more of that. And I think they'll be happy. You'll be happy. And another a book I want to recommend that I think is amazing. It's called Now Discover Your Talents. And in this quick, I can't remember if it's a half hour, it rapidly just fires questions at you. And at the end, I'm amazed. It can tell you the top 5 things that you're good at. And that, to me, that was even enlightening to me to look back and think, wow, how did that capture that from me? But what was fun is I gave that book to the people that worked for me, and then I got to learn what they were good at, right? So it was really good, and be able to give them more of that than try to give them things that they don't.
It's called Now
really
Discover
enjoy
Your
doing,
Talents.
right?
Now Discover Your Talents.
Yeah, Now Discover. Yep,
That's
very
what it's
good.
called.
You suggested a book. I would like to suggest one as well. That
Okay.
you could give to your
Sure.
faculty. There's a book called Conversations Worth Having.
Okay.
Oh.
By my professor, Jacqueline Stavros, but it
Nice.
talks about appreciative reading, and also talks about just like kind of guidance, guiding conversation so that you get the best out of it instead of the worst. And it just really helps
Awesome.
out. I think it's really cool.
Awesome. And what was
Thank
it
you
again?
so
It was-
much.
What was it again?
Conversations worth having.
Conversations
Conversations worth having. There's a question in the back. I want to get to that first, and then we'll do you, okay? She's been holding her hand up.
Mine was more of just a little input. I'm a media student here. I was actually asked to be here tonight to write on this event, and I'm so happy that I was asked to be here because the insights that you guys share, to me as a student in media, is so valuable. As a woman
Wonderful.
in media, you know, it's a completely dominated field by men, and you know, I am ready to face the challenges. Hopefully, I won't. But with your advice, I feel so inspired.
Oh,
That's
great,
wonderful.
Great.
Universal. Austin, yes.
Good.
As of course, as a man in this, and probably one of the few men in this entire panel today, in this
Event.
Right.
Yep.
event today, I'm very interested to hear what you guys have to say about women in STEM initiatives going on throughout the year, that have gone on throughout the years.
What specifically? Like,
Hiring initiatives or like educational initiatives.
oh, like the effort to get more women in those. How they feel about those efforts? I think I feel positive about it.
I don't know if it's because I moved from where I grew up to here, but I definitely meet more high school students who have heard of engineering. When I was a high schooler, I didn't really know it was a career option until my mom was like, "Hey, so-and-so's friend of so-and-so is an engineer. You should look it up." And I Googled it.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm meeting more younger students, women and men, who are more aware of it as a possible career opportunity. Like for me, I didn't have anyone in my family who was an engineer, but most of the students I know at Lawrence Tech have someone in their life or like some family member who's an engineer.
It's interesting.
And I think that, especially with Society of Women Engineers, there's a lot more programs in schools for high school students and even younger students that are teaching them, just showing them that it's a possibility. Not necessarily making them go into it, still giving them that choice, but also like making them aware that this is an opportunity for you.
Great. Very good insights. And everyone else feels good about these initiatives, I'm assuming. Yep.
I had one more question for you guys. First of all, I want to say thank you for the men who did come tonight, because I think that this is a conversation that we can't just have in a vacuum. And
Sure.
we talk a lot
Absolutely.
about women, bringing other women up, but can you talk about either experiences you've had or maybe conversations you wish you could have had with the men in your workplace and in your life that would have helped you to either get to the next step or to see them encourage women to pursue STEM or other passions?
I'm going to answer it just a little bit differently. And I actually learned this just last June from another woman vascular surgeon. She got really mad when you say female vascular surgeon, so I have to refer to her as a woman vascular surgeon. And it was a good piece of advice. So I'm very male-dominated field, a lot of old men in my field. They get a little cantankerous sometimes. And I get along great with a lot of them, but there are one or two not so good. And unfortunately, these are people sometimes that you have to be in a working relationship with. And as I've transitioned from being a student to a peer, I still struggle with that. Because you always think of this revered, well-published, senior male counterpart as your boss instead of your teammate.
Yeah.
And what this other vascular surgeon, the advice she gave in a panel kind of similar to what we're in today, but it was for vascular surgery, she said, once you get on that team, call everyone by their first name. It doesn't matter if I say Dr. So-and-so or he's saying, I use the first name. And I think that was my mistake because years ago when I graduated from my fellowship and took the position I'm at, which is in the same organization with the same people that helped teach me, I still referred to them as Dr. So-and-so. And it took me a while.
That sets a tone. That's really important.
It really does. And if I had just done that from minute one, and they did not encourage me, they still refer to me as Dr. Kennedy, usually when I'm in trouble. And I think that if you really want to break that down, you have to level that playing field. All of a sudden, even if they are more experienced than you, you still have the same job. And if you don't treat them as your peer, you will never succeed.
Yeah.
You're always going to set yourself up for that little bit of failure.
Yeah.
I'm in a situation right now where I report directly to the Chief Technology Officer. So I'm part of his operating committee. And one of the people on the operating committee I used to work for, and actually 3 times removed. So he was a director and I was a supervisor. And so now that we're sitting at the same table, sometimes it does still feel intimidating to be in that space because I know where he's been, right? I know that he has more experiences than I do in order for him to get where he is, and he's a technical fellow. So so I have to teach myself, again, going back to being assertive. I have to assert myself if there is a position that I need to hold. And he's really good at how he manages the relationship, right? Because there's something that he wants to get out of it. And he knows how to manage that. And with me being new and him knowing that we've had this relationship before, I have to learn that. And so it's just things that I'm picking up and things that I have to learn. But it is a little interesting being this woman and this man that, used to be my
and some of that could
leader.
also be true, even just if there wasn't the gender dynamic of just someone who's like a mentor to you or esteemed, that it feels strange.
And it
it could
strange to
be
be
a woman of a
assertive.
different generation even that you feel that way. Oh yeah.
What you just said is that you're trying to develop a strategy before you come together so you'll be prepared to win. That's what you're saying he had. And you had thought about long term, I gotta get this too. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
She said that.
so I think he just knows how to play the game better than I do.
Yeah.
He knows how to play the game better than I do. And now that we're at the same table, that's right. Now I've got to learn how to play the game. So I've got to start picking up these little pieces. That's
Yep.
right. The strategies for success to win.
Yep.
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 My playbook. You're right.
You know what I've noticed is from years of having interns is a lot of young women will come to me, they'll do their work, and if I give them feedback, they say they're sorry. They say they're sorry before
Oh,
they
yeah.
can understand. I haven't even gotten a full sentence out, and
Right.
they're sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Don't apologize.
Yeah.
Because I make 15 mistakes a day.
Right.
And when you keep doing that, when you keep apologizing,
Yeah.
it seems like you don't have any confidence in your own
Yeah.
work. And
Yeah.
you can't
That's that
stand up.
perfectionism right out of the gate that girls sometimes are trained that they are supposed
And I
to
don't know why
achieve.
we do that, but we do.
Yep.
So that would be just my little advice.
It's interesting what I heard from all of them.
You want me to answer the question why girls do that? Though we don't already know. Because we teach them to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They forget that they're scientists and engineers and
Mhm.
So it takes time, it takes practice.
Yeah.
To undo some of the negative, replace it with positive.
Sure.
Because you see it in your children.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Terry, did you have
I was
some?
gonna say, interesting thing I've heard from all of us is the word confidence. I
Yeah.
think we all, I think too, is to be like, you've got to be passionate to work to feel that confidence. Do whatever you need to do to fill in whatever little gap. But
Yeah.
I think we've all talked about it's really important that they have that confidence to carry you through all
Yeah.
of these different situations.
I agree.
And if you don't have the confidence, fake it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because I truly believe there are people at the top that are doing that.
Yeah, we know they are.
Well, and what was that? Donna had that expression. I loved it. It was like, grab the rope and you'll get dirty.
That's right. Yeah, just
Yeah.
get flopped around.
Grab
in
the rope.
dirt.
Let's get dirty.
Yes, yes.
I love that. Is that it then? I think we're all wrapped up. Anyone else saying anything? Closing remarks?
Sabrina's gonna close
Yes.
us out with a couple remarks, but thank you all so much.
Good evening, everyone, and I want to begin by first thanking Krista and Lisa. They did fabulous I'm really excited to be here this evening, to have this really important conversation focused on women in STEM. And on behalf of our provost, Dr. Maria Vaz, who is also a physicist, so thank you for being here tonight. And as a chemist and executive director of LTU's Marburger STEM Center, obviously this is a very important conversation for me, having these successful career pathways in STEM. And we know, and this is something that was brought up earlier, so in the United States, women earn about 35% of undergraduate degrees in STEM disciplines, but we represent about 60% of all, college graduates. So we do have a gender gap problem, right, in STEM. Only 35.2% of chemists are women, 11.1% of physicists and astronomers are women, 7.9% of mechanical engineers are women. So we have important work to do, and programs right here in Michigan, such as the STEMinista Project, Black Girls Code, the Girls in Engineering Academy, and this conversation tonight is why this is so important. Representation matters. And so all I want to say is go Blue Devils.